Hey there, welcome to Charting Toward Intimacy, where we're expanding the conversation around Catholic sexuality. I'm your host, Ellen Holloway. Hello, and welcome to this special episode of Charting Toward Intimacy for the Seek podcast. We're here from Charting Toward Intimacy to get you pumped and excited to attend the Seek 23 conference. So if you are listening and you haven't signed up yet, it is time to sign up. My name is Ellen Holloway.
I am Kathleen Chavanis.
And so we're the hosts of Charting Toward Intimacy. Charting Toward Intimacy, we talk about everything that you might be afraid to Google, right? So
you probably shouldn't Google.
And you shouldn't Google these things. Oh my gosh, please don't. Right. So we're talking like Catholic sexuality. We're talking intimacy in the bedroom, pleasure. That's a real thing. And that's something that God wants us to have, right? We wanted to introduce ourselves first. So my name, again, I'm Ellen. I am an instructor in a method of natural family planning called SymptoPro. I started this podcast back in 2020. It was my, it's the pandemic, I need to do something project. And I am also pursuing a Master's of Arts in Theology of the Body and the New Evangelization. So I am knee deep, elbow deep in theology of the body, and everything Pope John Paul II has to share about, the goodness of our bodies, the dignity of our humanity, and really what that has to do with like Catholic morals and sexual ethics and things like that. So I was so pumped to hear that the patron saint of Seek is Pope John Paul II. I was just like, this is clearly meant to be. I'm so excited to talk about this.
That's right.
Kathleen, why don't you introduce yourself?
So, and I'm Kathleen Chavanis. I've been co-hosting just like a couple episodes a month with Ellen for almost a year, right?
Yeah, it has been a year. Yeah.
A year we're coming up on, which is crazy. I am married to my wonderful husband for 10 years. We just had our 10-year anniversary, and we've been practicing natural family planning and fertility awareness and all that throughout our marriage at this point for like 10 years. We have 5 children. And, as we, and there's like other episodes, which lays out my whole story, which I won't do right now, but starting to learn, fertility awareness and natural family planning at the beginning of a marriage, proved to be really, really difficult for me. And for a lot of people, I think. So as I've been practicing over the last 10 years, I've really started to feel this frustration of why didn't I know this sooner? Because, and we're going to kind of go in and talk a little bit about this in this episode, I think, but it's all just such good information. And I am almost certified in FEM to teach.
Probably by the time you listen to this episode, she'll be fully certified.
Yeah, exactly. I will most likely be certified. I'm waiting for my test results. But anyway, so I will be an instructor in the FEM method of fertility awareness, which stands for fertility education and medical management. And, just in the last 10 years of practicing, I've really developed this passion for getting the information of the woman's body and cycles and cycle health, all of this, into the hands of Catholics and anybody in general that's interested sooner than marriage prep and, early marriage. It's information that we could use from the time we start cycling through to the time we're hitting menopause. So,
right. And this is not just for women too. Like, yes, this information is vital for everyone to know about how the fertility cycle works, how the woman's body works, how like I mean, it is sacramental how the woman's body works. It is this incredible like journey of faith and like journey through the cross and resurrection through her cycle. Like, I mean, we're not going to get quite so mystical in this particular podcast episode,
but it is. It's
but it is
impeccable and like intentional design. Which the more you dive into it and the deeper you get, just reveals so much of God and who he is and the plan for humanity. And it's incredible. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So if you're a guy listening to this and you're like, oh, hold up, this is not the episode for me. Or maybe you're listening and you're like, I've already pretty much discerned that like I'm for priesthood or religious life is for me. Like this is still going to be some great info for you to learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Please keep listening.
Know this stuff too.
Yes.
Even the priests need to know this.
And religious sisters, y'all should chart. This is really important. Yeah. Okay. So the theme of Seek this year is You Are Called. And so the title of this episode is You Are Called to Integrate Your Body and Soul. And oh my gosh, we could talk for 50 hours on
forever
on this particular sentence. You are called to integrate your body and soul. We're going to be focusing it a little bit more on, fertility awareness, fertility science, and natural family planning. But just know that like this applies so much more outside of what we're going to be chatting about too. So you are called to integrate your body and soul. We believe in the resurrection of the body. We do not believe in the resurrection of the soul ascending by itself and our bodies we just slough them off.
In the ground.
Yeah. Now we do die, right? Our body and our soul does separate at death. Our soul goes to the final judgment with Jesus, but we believe in the resurrection of the body.
Now, where was it? Was it you and I, Ellen? I don't remember if it was us talking about it, but I listened to something recently that talked about how, when a person dies, like you see their body and it's not fully them.
Yes.
Like it's just not fully them, obviously. Like they're not there anymore. They're not within their body. Their soul is no longer there animating the body. And so it's a completely different, like to see, a body without a soul is like, it's not fully them. In the same way, the soul in heaven after death without its body is not fully itself. I don't remember if it was you and I talking about
I don't think it was, but because I'm
like,
yeah.
So right? Like it's just as the body is not itself without the soul is also not fully itself without its body. So, even though the soul is what's animating us and giving us personality and everything, it is the essential piece of us. It is still not complete and not full and whole without the body that it animates. So
it goes to speculate, like, will our souls be in heaven without our body? Is that a purgatory thing? I don't know. We're not getting into that now.
We're not getting into that. But just to show that, like, we are not just body. We are not just soul. And having them separated after our death is not the natural way that we are meant to be. That, the integration of body and soul is the only way we can be whole and full.
Absolutely.
So, we can kind of go into how, fertility awareness and NFP and everything really speaks to all of that. And I would say, honestly, we're using these terms like sort of fertility awareness.
Let's define some terms. Because this is something that we've defined a lot on the podcast. But for those of you who are listening to this episode, you might be totally brand new to our lingo. So
just for seed.
All right. So let's define fertility awareness first and then NFP. So fertility awareness, using fertility awareness to track your cycle is utilizing the visible biomarkers that your body is giving. So these are things like cervical mucus, basal body temperature, and hormone metabolites in urine. So different methods of fertility awareness are going to use one or more of those things to basically what you're identifying is a fertile window and the infertile windows of your cycle. Now, of course, if you're married and trying to avoid pregnancy, you would take a full class in this. You wouldn't just like listen to a podcast and be like, I know how to chart. No, you don't. But if you're
definitely not recommended.
No, not recommended at all. Please go take a full class. So fertility awareness is really just that identifying of the fertile times in the cycle and the infertile times in the cycle. That's all that fertility awareness is.
Yes.
Now, natural family planning is the use of a fertility awareness-based method alongside prayer and discernment to plan your family in line with God's will and his design of your body. There's that word again, body.
Yeah.
So natural family planning isn't just interchangeable with fertility awareness. And if you really listen in how we use it and how we say it, we don't necessarily just interchange the words. We're talking about something really different when we're talking about natural family planning. We are talking about an active discernment process alongside of learning about these natural fertile and infertile windows. And that natural discernment process, that is conversation with your spouse, that is prayer, that is just openness to life sometimes, right? That is conversation with a spiritual director or your parish priest, or maybe other couples too. Like obviously there are certain things in marriage that are only for discussion between you and your spouse, but there are other things that really open up to needing to discuss with other couples. Yeah. So when a couple is using natural family planning, one of the things I mentioned was, they're in line with God's will and design, right? So again, using natural family planning presupposes active discernment. If you are actively discerning God's will and not being self-reliant, if you are opening yourself up to the Spirit and saying, your will be done in my life, and actively discerning what God is calling you to do, then you can be assured that you are following God's will to the best of your ability, right?
Yeah.
So you might hear people saying, oh, you can use NFP with, a contraceptive mentality. You can use NFP wrong, or NFP is wrong because you're trying to, supplant God's plan. If you are actively discerning, if you are in active prayer in anything in your life, you can rest assured that you are doing the best you can as a human, right? We are human. We are not going to be perfect. We are not always going to perfectly follow God's will. So
100%,
using natural family planning presupposes that discernment. Now, I would say it is absolutely possible to use fertility awareness only in sort of this mentality that people use birth control in, and I'm just controlling my fertility, and I'm controlling the outcome of sex because I, and being very legalistic about it. Because fertility awareness does not presuppose that active prayer and discernment. Now, I have totally repeated myself like 3 times.
But it's such an important message and understanding to get across, because I think it can be really confusing with like, wait, well, what's the difference between fertility awareness and NFP? As college students, right? If you are attending Seek as a college student, you're probably not married yet. Maybe some of you
Maybe some of you are. And like, if you are, listen in on this episode more. I mean, this podcast more, right?
Exactly. But if you are not, if you have not gotten to that point of your life yet, and you're still very much discerning your vocation, you don't need to be practicing natural family planning.
No.
You should be practicing fertility awareness, or, you can start practicing fertility awareness. We recommend it.
We'd recommend you start charting.
It's fantastic for women's health. But you are not at a point where natural family planning, right? Like incorporating God into the planning of your family, is a really vital key piece of your life. You're not there yet. But fertility awareness is the basis. It is the ground the ground level framework for natural family planning, which is why it's so good to learn it. I mean, like I said, I wish I learned it as in high school as a teenager.
I wish I had to. So this is what happens.
Women really do.
Yeah, this is what happens as we're both instructors. We've instructed couples and individuals through this, and we both work in marriage prep in different ways. So we've encountered a lot of couples who hear about NFP for the first time. We've done the NFP talk.
Yes. Yep.
at wedding prep, pre-Cana, whatever your diocese calls it, right? The number one thing we hear is, why didn't I hear about this sooner?
Yeah.
Right. I wish I had. I remember when I was in college, I was at my Newman Center. I was at UC Davis. Shout out to anyone who is going to UC Davis. I was at my Newman Center and I saw this pamphlet for natural family planning, like just sitting on a thing to pick up, right? And I looked at it and there was like this happy couple like in a field on the pamphlet. That's kind of an inside joke with NFP people who promote NFP is like, frolicking in a field.
The field is vital. It's vital.
It's apparently vital for NFP. Pictures about NFP. Anyway, I saw this pamphlet and I like kind of like opened it up and like flipped through it and I'm like, this is like, what is this? This is like astrology. This is like some made up thing. This isn't real, because what I was told in sex ed is that there's no such thing as safe sex and you can get pregnant anytime. Mm-hmm. That's not true. I wish I had that like sound effect.
Fake
news. Seriously. Okay. Guys, first of all, the sentence, there's no such thing as safe sex, like, there is so much wrong with that. We will not get into that. Yeah. Sex should be safe.
Yeah. Always. It should be.
Sex is an image of divine Trinitarian love and the relationship of Christ to his church. It should never be unsafe. It should always be safely with a person that you are married to and have a indelible mark on your soul connecting you to this person. Okay. Anyway.
Tangent.
But let's talk about the sentence, you can get pregnant any time of your cycle. So wrong.
So false.
Okay. So let's run through fertility cycle real fast. All right. So it starts with menstruation. You've got a couple of days of bleeding. 3 to 5 is kind of average. Then typically, let's say you've got a typical cycle range length of about 25 to 34. That's kind of in your typical range. You're probably going to have a couple, maybe 1 to 2 to 3 to 5 days of kind of infertility, pre-ovulatory infertility. Then you're going to have the build up to ovulation. Cervical mucus is a big player here. You're going to have this build up to ovulation. Then you're going to have the main event of ovulation. So during that build up to ovulation time and a couple of days after that main event of ovulation, that's that fertile window that we're talking about. It's technically speaking, the fertile window is only as long as 6.7 days. That is as long as it can get.
Yeah.
I did learn that new 0.7.
Look at that. 6.7.
6.7. That is,
you can say about a week.
About a week, right? About a week. That is as long as it can get. Now, a fertility awareness based method is going to find a fertile window of somewhere between 9 to 15 days, roughly. So you're not just at a week. It's a little bit longer because the signs present are going to start showing earlier than you're actually like fertile. And if you want to get more into the fertility science, we've got more episodes on our podcast. If you want to dive in a little bit more and learn about like what's really going on, please go check out some other episodes. So we won't like take up too much time to do that. But so then once ovulation happens, once you have confirmed that ovulation happened with the biomarkers that you're tracking, so things like cervical mucus, basal body temperature, hormone metabolites, and urine, once you've confirmed, you are infertile for the rest of your cycle. It is impossible for the body to ovulate again. There are lies out there, like literal lies that are like, oh yeah, you can like ovulate a couple of times during your cycle. No.
Which you can.
The only way, yeah,
within 24 hours of each other. So it's all still falling
fraternal
within that same
twins. Yeah. Fraternal twins are the cause of a double ovulation. That ovulation happens, the eggs are released within the same 24-hour window because there is a hormone called progesterone that is secreted by the housing that housed the egg. Like, so egg leaves this housing, the corpus luteum. I'm realizing I'm getting a little more sciencey than I had meant to.
You can't help yourself.
I can't help myself. You guys are all in college. Like you're in this like learning phase. I'm like thinking about you. And all the big words, right? Corpus
you
luteum.
just want this, whether you realize it or not. You want this.
You want this. We're not trying to indoctrinate you, but we are. Do you know what indoctrinate means? Okay, it means to insert doctrine into you. We are trying to indoctrinate you. Right? We are giving you like doctrine of your body, your health. Okay,
there,
anyway,
yeah. Anyway, corpus luteum.
Yeah, corpus luteum secretes progesterone. Progesterone tells your body to stop ovulating. It makes it impossible for your body to ovulate. This is why women who are pregnant don't get double pregnant.
Because they stop at progesterone.
Because progesterone
the highest
stops.
levels it can reach
Yeah.
during pregnancy, which prohibits ovulation from even being able to happen.
Yeah. So anyway, progesterone happens. It's impossible to ovulate again for the rest of the cycle. And then the cycle begins again with menstruation. So a couple who is using natural family planning and has discerned, again, discernment, active discernment is a part of natural family planning, who has discerned that right now is a time to avoid pregnancy, they would abstain from all sexual intercourse and genital contact during that defined fertile window. And then they would come together during other times of the cycle. So that's like just basically how it works. I feel like if I had just gotten that introduction in high school, I mean, well, high school too, but at college.
Yeah.
Either time would have been great.
Would have been great.
I personally feel that I would have been so much more set up for success in marriage because one of my greatest faults, one of my greatest, missing the mark, right? My greatest sin, let's just announce it on a public podcast, right? Is that my husband and I started using contraception when we first got married because we didn't understand what NFP was. We didn't think it worked. We didn't realize that there was evidence-based research behind it to show that with perfect use, these methods are 98 to 99.9% effective at avoiding pregnancy. That's huge, you guys. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
Condoms are like 87% effective. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah. No, and
go.
Sorry, go ahead. Finish her. You can finish her thought if you want. No, I was gonna say that it's, as we've been talking about how NFP, that prayer and discernment piece of it is the clear integration of body and soul, right? It's the knowledge of the body, right? Fertility awareness with the joining of the soul in asking God to essentially guide our actions of our body, to guide our knowledge and our hopes and our dreams and everything, right? To send His Holy Spirit to guide our marriage and our family and our planning. And it's this like beautiful daily integration of body and soul.
Right. When we're talking about this active discernment, we are not talking about just checking in once a month.
Right.
Which I think is sometimes often talked about with NFP. They're like, oh yeah, you're like discern on a monthly basis. No. This is daily. This is an hourly. I mean, you might wake up in the morning, maybe it's mid fertile window. And in the morning, it's like, no, we're still on trying to avoid. But then something, bam, happens that day.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lord just like comes to you and makes it this. Spoiler alert, this is my story. The Lord just comes to you in that moment and says, this is the time.
Mm-hmm.
This is the time, right? And that changes everything.
Everything. Yeah, you could, and that's, I think, what's become my biggest prayer in practicing, NFP, that I've learned is that I am not meant to control my family.
Oh my gosh.
To control
that word,
how many children I have and want, like I have my ideal, I have my wishes, right?
Yep.
But at the end of the day, I am not meant to knuckle down on the rules of fertility awareness to make sure that my plan is what plays out.
Mm-hmm.
I am meant to understand the rules so that I know my body, and then to understand that the Spirit, and to ask God to allow His Holy Spirit to move me in the direction that He wants, in the direction that He asks.
Mm-hmm.
So that one day I might wake up and be like, listen, I cannot get pregnant for like another 2 years. Okay. Like that's just what the place I'm at. Like, that's it. Like
that's my mindset. That's my body. That's what all of these things are telling me.
That's and then the next morning to be able to wake up and say, you know what, maybe it wouldn't be so bad.
Yeah.
Maybe I could take a chance, and just let God work. Let Him move.
And I think something that's really important to understand, and I love the language that you use to explain that scenario, because we are not ever guaranteed a child. Mm-hmm. Never. We are. Yes. I mean, the Bible says that like children are a gift, right? Like this is a gift from God. This is not I'm a good Catholic, so I deserve to have a big family, or I'm a good Catholic, so I deserve to have children. That's not how it works, mm-hmm. right? And so I love the language that you used, Kathleen, in, maybe I am like willing to take that chance, and it'd be okay if that's what God willed from this particular union.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because we know that not every union creates a child. I mean, Adam and Eve didn't have a baby until after the fall. We know that they were pretty darn united in the garden. I mean,
perfect unity.
We know that they had perfect unity in the garden. Now, we don't exactly know what that looked like, but we know that there was perfect unity. But also, again, because of this fertility cycle, obviously, not every marital act is supposed to end in a child, mm-hmm. because we have these windows of infertility.
Yeah. And that's exactly right. Men are already 100% fertile. So what, if God wanted every single act to result in a child, He would have made women 100% fertile as well.
I feel that in my bones. Like, I'm like, if that is what God willed, he would have made women equally fertile. Like, mm-hmm. and it probably would have looked different because women and men are very different. Like our constant fertility would probably look different. But I feel that in my bones. That has been like a fruit of my prayer life, of just understanding, like, I feel like God said to me, like, Ellen, if I had wanted that, I could have done something different, right?
Exactly. And let's talk about for a second, just 1 second, let's get a little TOB on this,
sure.
Right?
Let's do it.
Of the body. Let's talk about how man and woman are made to be complementary. Mm-hmm. They are made to be different in a way that complements the other. So that essentially when they come together, they are the fullness of God's love. Right?
Yes.
They are the fullness. Now let's talk about how when, the ever elusive birth control pill, right? That like so many of us have been on, right? For one reason or another, because
I mean, so many of you guys listening, so many of you women listening, you might be on the birth control pill for health reasons. Yes. And please know that I put that in air quotes. Like, please please do your research.
Yes.
There are very few times when there is like a legitimate health reason that there isn't another option for you.
Yes. And your
Please do
doctor
research.
may not know that.
Yes.
Your doctor, I mean, we've all been there. We have all been there where our doctors are pushing birth control on us, particularly after having a child. They will push it on you as if it's your only option for preventing another pregnancy. And it's just not. And it's not the only option for the health reasons that we have on it. So essentially what is happening, and this is the point that I wanted to get to, is the goodness of the differences in man and woman. So men are constantly fertile, right? Their hormones are static. They are like one line throughout their entire like like their fertility years, right? Which are a while. It's just one line of hormones.
They have longer fertility years than women.
Yeah. With very, very minor, small fluctuations.
Yeah. They have fluctuations like throughout the day, not like over the course of a month. Like they have kind of like a little bit of like a 24-hour like kind of fluctuation of certain hormones.
Exactly. Whereas women, you look at their
it's
line
a roller
of hormones,
coaster.
It is a literal roller coaster of, these going up and these going down and switching and up, and it's crazy. Okay. Now, what are we doing?
And it can make you crazy.
They make you crazy too. And it's okay. It's okay. We have all been there. Every day we're all there. And then what happens when we take birth control? All of those hormones that are just fluctuating in women throughout a course of a month are flatlining. And we are made to look just like a man. And we are not men. We are not. We are meant to be complementary. And that those lines of hormones that are just fluctuating in women and then static in men, that is designed that way to complement each other.
Yes.
And when we take the pill, all of that beautiful complementarity that plays out in our bodies without us even knowing is just flatlining. And now all of a sudden our hormones are static like a man's.
Right.
Except men's are like actually at healthy levels and ours are not.
Yeah, right. Ours are pushed down. I mean, you just like imagine like an olive press just like pressing out the goodness.
Yes. And the goodness to, essentially what birth control does is it just suppresses women's hormones so that ovulation cannot happen. You need this like interplay of hormones elevating and dropping and all of this for ovulation to occur. And what it does, and a lot of the times, some issues that we might experience in our cycle, the reason they put you on birth control to fix those is so that those hormones are just suppressed so they can no longer cause whatever your issue is. But what we don't know is that those issues are typically results of something underlying, right? That needs to be addressed and fixed, not something that needs to be suppressed. So it's covering up the symptoms of, the birth control pill is doing it's like, oh, well, I had really bad acne and the birth control pill like ended it. Or, I had really awful cramps that were like sending me to the hospital and the birth control, solved that. It did not solve the underlying problem that was causing the acne, causing the bad cramps, whatever it is. All it did was suppress those hormones so that it fixed the symptoms of what the issue is that you are experiencing. And the other, really important piece to this is that those hormones, that roller coaster of hormones is so important for your overall development, the development of your brain, of your bones.
Your bone health is huge.
Bone health is huge. Heart, breast tissue. I mean, everything. Those hormones are not just responsible for your fertility. They are working to develop your entire body. And when they're suppressed, they cannot do the job that they need to do for your optimal overall health.
Yeah. I mean, just think about the body of Christ, right? Like we are all called to do our part. You are called to do your part, right? You are called to step into the place that God has called you to be. And if you don't, it's not that someone's going to fill that spot. Yeah.
Yes.
It's that spot is going to be missing from the body of Christ. If you don't step into the role that God asked you to step into, that's going to be a hole in the fabric of this like body of Christ, right? So the same goes for our body. If we turn off a perfectly functioning system of our body, and that's what birth control is trying to do, it's trying to just turn it off, our whole body suffers because it's all connected, right? And these are not like just coincidental. Oh, that's interesting that my body is all connected and the communion of saints is all connected, right? No, that's God actually designed it that way to make sure that we understood how the communion of saints worked, right? Yeah. All of these things that exist in our body, the union of man and woman, the marital act in itself, like all of those things are built for us to be signs of God, of the eternal, of the marriage of the Lamb that we are all called to, of the communion of saints. These are all supposed to help us to understand what we are really destined for. So when you're seeing these things play out in your life, it's not just a coincidence. That is God trying to paint the picture for you. He's like, look, I made man and woman in my image so that you can understand my image better.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do want to stress, just in talking about birth control a little bit, that this isn't to say there is never there's never a time where it is morally okay to take birth control. But as Ellen said before, those times are very, very few.
Yeah, in most cases, there is another option that is actually getting to the problem.
Correct. Yes. So, and this isn't, like I said, so many of us have been there.
This is not to shame.
Exactly. This is
not in any way. We're trying to just open the door for you. Just see, there are other options.
Because
maybe
like
it's
Ellen
time
said
to do some
earlier,
research.
in people that we have taught this, the number one thing that we've heard is, I wish I knew this sooner. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the times that's in reference to saying, I never would have gone on birth control if I had understood this.
Yep.
I wish I understood how birth control was going to affect my long-term fertility or my long-term health.
Yeah.
Right. People wish they knew this information, which is why we want to use this opportunity to give you
this information,
to give you this information, to give you this insight, to say, hey, listen, you can know this sooner. You can start now.
And here's the thing is if you're learning a fertility awareness method in order to use it to try to avoid pregnancy in the context of NFP and in the context of marriage, Kathleen and I always recommend learn from a certified instructor. That is really important. Yes. If you are trying to get that high efficacy of avoiding pregnancy, you need to work one-on-one with an instructor. Or a group class, but you're still going to have one-on-one time with that instructor and one-on-one follow-up. If you are wanting to start charting right now for health, go ahead and look on the internet, right? You can...
Yeah, what are some good resources, Ellen? Let's give some resources.
Yeah.
Maybe you could link in the show notes too.
So
where can I start learning? Where can I go?
So a couple of great resources to just get some overviews of, what's fertility awareness, what is all this, is an organization called FAMBASE. They've got a website, fambase.org. It's FABMBASE, thank you, .org. Or managingyourfertility.com. Those two are great. They've got some great resources and just what are the different methods? What do they mean?
Base is really like a one-stop shop. What method is going to be best for you? Mm-hmm. You can figure that out there. You can find instructors. You can find, you can find all the information that you could possibly need.
I've got an episode in the archives called Charting as a Single Woman. Mm-hmm. I highly suggest going in and checking that episode out. Mm-hmm. The guest on that episode also has some more resources that I can't recall right at this moment. And
the other
another option.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got one more. And this is not a Catholic option. I also do not recommend this if you are using this in natural family planning, in the context of marriage, in the context of trying to avoid pregnancy. I do not recommend this. But if you're looking to just start charting for health, Taking Charge of Your Fertility is a huge book, but it's got a ton of information, and it can get you started on charting in a very inexpensive way, because it's like a $15 book.
Yeah. Yeah. And also just from a more secular perspective and focusing more on the science of fertility awareness, there are 2 other websites, factsaboutfertility.org, FACTS aboutfertility.org, and naturalwomanhood.org are 2 really great websites to help you learn more about the science and understand, how this can be effective, and how the body, why it's so important for the body to practice fertility awareness.
Yeah. I've got one more I just remembered is Pearl and Thistle is an organization run by a wonderful woman named Christina Valenzuela.
Christina's the best.
She's amazing. She has an incredible 90-page PDF book for those of you in this situation of wanting to chart as a single woman. And this comes from a Catholic perspective. She brings in theology of the body. She talks about the integration of your body and soul. I can't believe I didn't think to mention this one as the first option to
she
look
just
into.
came out with it.
Yes. At the time of us recording, she just came out with this. That is a fantastic resource. That is what I would point anyone to.
Yes.
So I think, just to kind of sum up everything that we've talked about, is we wanted to bring kind of really the science and a little bit of the theology behind natural family planning to those of you in this, college age, young adult, starting to make those discernment decisions of what is my vocation, or at least starting to ask those questions, right? Maybe some of you guys are already married. And just open the door for you to share this information that we wish, both Kathleen and I wish we would have known this in college, even in high school and junior high. I wish I would have known this. But also that basically everyone we've come into contact with has wished they knew about it sooner. And so, here we are, our doors are open. Please go check out the podcast with more info. You can find me on Instagram at Charting Toward Intimacy. And start researching, dive in, learn about this. I think you'll be amazed at what you're going to learn.
Yes. And I would say, with this week, if you're listening to this episode and you feel sort of this burning interest, right? Wait a minute, this sounds like way more than I ever knew existed. Wait, I need to learn more. I want to figure this out. Or maybe you feel nervous to do that. Wait, I thought this was all totally bogus. I can't buy into this, even though it sounds really interesting. I can't do it. Bring this to prayer during your Seek Week, right? You've got JP2 as your patron, Mr. Theology of the Body,
Mr. Theology of the Body,
Mr. Ask his intercession, ask him to pray for you, to guide you to, how this can really be a part of your life, and how you can understand yourself as a child of God, through your body and your fertility and the way you were made and created and designed with total purpose.
Yeah.
And know that, our doors are always open, as Ellen said.
All right. Wow. Yeah. And, I believe that we're going to be able to link, ways to reach out to us, in the show notes. Well, hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. If not, chartingtowardintimacy@gmail.com. Please send us an email. We would love to hear from you, connect you with resources, whatever you need. And thanks so much for listening. Kathleen and I had so much fun recording this episode. And if you are listening and you are not yet signed up for Seek, this is the time. Guys, I wish I had had the opportunity to attend a Seek conference when I was in college, and it just never worked out. And I just want to encourage you that if your biggest concern is finances for attending Seek, put that on Mama Mary. She will make it happen. If you are meant to be there, the money will come. I just really want to encourage you to listen to the Spirit's guiding and attend Seek if that's what He's calling you to do. Thanks so much for listening. If you are not already following us on Instagram, be sure to check us out at Charting Toward Intimacy. And if you have questions, comments, episode topic ideas, or just want to chat, please reach out to us on Instagram or via email, chartingtowardintimacy@gmail.com. Until next time.